Our neighborhood suddenly doesn't seem so peaceful anymore. This isn't the first time our house has broken into, but you were too small to remember, said Michael. Who broke into our house? Asked Eugenia. Some robbers, lied Michael. To cover up the lie, he said this truth. This is how Daddy got this scar. Eugenia patted the scar over her father's left eyebrow, and his daughters and his wife went inside the house, and Michael lingered on the porch, and Sidanta was still inside the car, fuming. He was erasing all the photos he had with Dorothy, and afterward he planned to mark her phone as spam. Michael entered the limousine to speak with Sidanta. Sidanta, said Michael. What? Barked Sidanta. Settle down, said Jeremy, patting Sidanta's hand. Sidanta took the fragile hand into his own before he started crying, and once he calmed down, Michael said, I am sorry that my daughter broke your heart, but she was a teenager up until a few months ago. And girls like her don't want to commit, they just want to have fun. And even so, I would still like it that you continue to go out with her. You need to give a relationship time for love to develop. Just let it go, Michael, said Jeremy. Just listen to what I have to say, and then you can decide how to proceed. The relationship with my first wife started as purely a physical affair. She loved me for my body, and I loved her for her money. Though over time it eventually evolved into something else, said Michael. I was under the impression that you were born with a silver spoon, commented Sidanta. Not at all. Are you going to give Dorothy another chance? Asked Michael. Before Sidanta answered, Carina said, the wound is still fresh, and give Sidanta some time to cool off, and if he answers now, he will probably say no. She's right, said Sidanta, and right now, all I want to say is no. Can I still work as a dog walker? Asked Jeremy. Sure, said Sidanta, but stay within the line of sight of all the cameras. There's a vampire on the prowl. As you wish, lied Jeremy. He had no intention of doing as Sidanta commanded. You better stay where we can see you, ordered Michael, or you're fired. Yes, your highness, said Jeremy before giving an exaggerated bow. Michael returned to his house, and the next item on the menu was taking Jeremy to Kane's house. This was the first time that Carina had a prolonged solo interaction with Sidanta and Jeremy, and Sidanta was usually with Dorothy while Jeremy only stopped by her house to speak to Unla. My mother wanted to know why you didn't come to your last section, said Carina. Yes, I am curious about that myself, said Sidanta. I remember dropping you off in front of Carina's house, and what did you do during the hour that you were supposed to be having a session? I looked for new clients, said Jeremy. New clients for what? For what? Asked Carina. For my dog walker business, said Jeremy, and he brought out from his wallet a card. Michael printed this for me. Jeremy, professional dog walker and groomer, read Carina before turning the card around. Give a card to all your friends, said Jeremy, handing a card to Bruno. He removed his seatbelt before rolling his way towards the driver's window, and he knocked on it, until the limo driver finally rolled down the window. The driver raised his hand to accept the card from Jeremy, and as soon as Jeremy was out of sight, the driver threw the car out the window. The limo eventually stopped at Kane's house, and Carina took a deep breath before making her way towards the door. Before she knocked, she felt a warm body beside her, and she took much comfort from Bruno's presence, and this moment was short-lived. Jeremy pushed past her to knock on Kane's door, and Tiba, smelling his owner's scent, yelled, Jeremy! The cat jumped at the door in order to try to open it, and since he was raising a fuss, Kane had no other choice but to open it. He picked up the cat in order to keep it from running away, and more than anything, he wanted to hold on to Tiba for a little longer. The cat wiggled and scratched while he tried to get out the door, and after hesitating, Kane finally opened the door. Jeremy stretched out his hands, and Tiba gingerly jumped into his arm, and Kane breaking down kneel before Jeremy to beg him for the cat, and crying, he said, Jeremy, for the love of God, I will give you whatever you want, just let me keep Tybalt. This is stupid, said Sidanta, and he took the cat from Jeremy before gifting it to Kane. Here, you can have it. Thank you, Sidanta, said Kane before closing the door. Jeremy, meowed Tybalt. It is Kane. Say it with me now, Kane, said Kane. Jeremy punched at the door before yelling, I don't care what Sidanta says, you can't have my cat, Kane. Well, I don't want that stupid cat in my house anymore, barked Sidanta. I rue the day I ever allowed you to keep that stupid vermin that you stole from God knows where. I didn't steal Tybalt, lied Jeremy, and he added, I adopted him. And where are his adoption papers? barked Santa, poking holes into Jeremy's lies. I adopted him from a guy who was giving away kittens, lied Jeremy. The two began to bicker like an old married couple, and Ken got to keep Tybalt for another day. Carina was happy with his turn on events. In the end, she wasn't needed. The limo drive to Sidanta's house was a bit of a rough mess, with Jeremy and Sidanta screeching like peacocks, and they no longer cared that they were being washed. They were going to yell until the others submitted. Carina was thankful to be dropped off before then, and as soon as the limo driver took them away, Carina and Bruno breathed a sigh of relief. Wow, that was loud, said Carina. And annoying. And let's never fight like that, baby, said Bruno. Yes, let's not, said Carina, raising her pinky. The two made a pinky promise to speak about their problems like civilized adults. And Monday came and with it a return to normalcy, and like every Monday, Carina showered, ate breakfast with her boyfriend. She kissed him in the mouth before going to their respective places of employment. And during lunch, she began to ponder how her friend Kane was doing, and she called him on the phone, and he immediately answered. Hi, Kane, said Carina. Hi, said Kane. Hi, meowed Tybalt. Wow, that cat sure knows a lot of words, commented Carina. I thought I had to say hi, said Kane proudly. Tybalt already knew how to say the word. However, after getting pressured enough to say the word, Tybalt had eventually agreed to say the word hi whenever Kane said hi. Because like when you're training a cat, it's not like dogs that they be like, oh please master, do whatever you want. With cats, you gotta force them to do stuff. They be like, make me. I just learned that in like a cat documentary. Did you go to work? asked Carina. Yes, I couldn't stay at home by myself, said King. And he was driving himself mad with worry, and he wasn't used to the idea of being hunted. As a cop, he was supposed to be the hunter. Are your co-workers bothering you? asked Carina. No, said King. He fancied that his uncle had sent out a group email instructing his underlings not to bother his nephew, and he sighed wearily before saying, Life is quite funny sometimes, and one day you're a hero, and the next you're the one who needs rescuing. Maybe you should look for a different type of employment, fancied Carina. I don't know, said Ken, shutting down, and he always got like that whenever anyone suggested that he go look for something else to do with his life, and he added, and we don't know the motive, and maybe I got targeted for dancing in Space Club, or maybe I shouldn't have danced with a guy that one time in Mojitos. You danced with a guy in Mojitos? asked Carina. Was it Oberon? No, it wasn't him. Oberon asked me to pick up a guy for him, and since I'm not good with pickup lines, I danced like you until a man noticed me, and the crew was really into me, and I told him to wait for me in the band before sending Oberon his way. And you know, a classic bait and switch strategy, and maybe he took offense to me tricking him, guessed Kane. I don't know. I spoke to Irina the other day, and the cards told her that there may be someone that I know, said Carina. Someone that you know? Who? asked Kane. And before Carina could answer, he said, Oh no. What's wrong, Kane? asked Carina, worried. And during that pause, she took a few bites from her tuna sandwich, and she was trying to eat healthy again to get rid of all the pounds she had acquired while on vacation. Jeremy's here for his cat, said Kane. Kane, Jeremy can actually sue you to get his pet back, said Carina. Bruno had warned her about the potential consequences for Kane refusing to return Tybalt to his owner. You're an adult, not a child. Do the adult thing and return the cat before things escalate. Kane placed his cell phone on speaker before turning to face Jeremy, and Jeremy brought out a gun, and he shoved that gun at Kane's face, and Farley, seeing this as a threat display, brought out his own pistol, and he placed it against Jeremy's noggin. Lower your weapon, Jeremy, warned Detective Farley. Relax, said Jeremy, twirling his gun around in his index finger. I'm not threatening anyone. I merely wish to make a trade. Farley took Jeremy's revolver and he said, You shouldn't play around with a gun. Someone can get hurt. Relax, it doesn't have any bullets, said Jeremy, and he tried to reach for it, but Farley pushed him back, and Jeremy added with a whippy tone in his voice, Do you recognize this gun? That's my grandpa's revolver, said Kane, standing up, and Farley handed Kane his revolver in order to have him identified, and Kane nodded before saying, Yes, this is my grandpa's revolver, and here are his initials on the bottom of the gun grip, and here's the family motto carved into the muzzle of the gun. You know, like the family crest. Farley brought out a magnifying glass and he read the words, Pejus letos flagitium. Disgrace is worse than death, translated Kane. So it is your grandpa's revolver. Since I so graciously returned it to you, I expect you to reciprocate, said Jeremy, extending his hand, and becoming annoyed, he spoke plainly. I found your grandpa's revolver. Now give me back my cat. Nobody's getting this revolver until we are through with it, said Farley before placing it inside an evidence bag, and he added, This is evidence for an ongoing investigation, and once it is done, you can have your revolver back, Kane, and more importantly, where did you find it? At the beach, said Jeremy. With what? asked Farley. With a metal detector, lied Jeremy. Farley went to the storage closet and he came back with a metal detector, and he said to Jeremy, Can you do a demonstration? Jeremy looked at his cat before looking at Kane, and Kane was gutting T-Ball like a hawk. And he knew that the moment that he let go of the cat, Jeremy was going to spring for it. And with no other options, Jeremy made his way out of the police station, and he didn't get far. Two officers escorted Jeremy into the interrogation room. Like Siddhanta, Farley was starting to suspect that Jeremy knew the identity of the man that had attacked Kane, and he fancied that he was covering for his lover. And Kane went to the other side of the looking glass, and he wanted to see and hear everything that Jeremy had to say. It was then when he remembered that Carina was still on speaker, and he turned off the phone, and he would tell her everything after work. Siddhanta is going to be mad, warned Jeremy. I don't care, said Farley, sitting before Jeremy. I won't talk regardless of what you do to me, said Jeremy defiantly. The minutes rolled slowly by, with Jeremy becoming a stone wall of silence, and it didn't matter what Farley said or how much he threatened Jeremy. He was met by a pair of glassy copper eyes. And at times he pondered if Jeremy's mind had checked out, and he had never interrogated someone as aloof as Jeremy. After 2 hours, Jeremy finally opened his mouth. The youth said, I was there. There was something queer about the intonation of his voice, and he almost sounded like a completely different person. You were there. Good. Now we're getting somewhere, said Farley. Kane tested Farley, and Farley read Kane's message. Jeremy was on vacation in Paris when I was attacked. You went there. You were in Paris, said Farley. But I was there, Detective Farley. I saw everything, and I find it quite hypocritical to be accused of protecting a criminal when you are doing the same thing, said Jeremy, smiling thinly. The color completely left Farley's face, and he finally understood what Jeremy was alluding to. And last summer, Farley's son Oswald had taken his father Monster for a joyride, and the twin had ended up crashing against Kane's patrol car, and the kid had fled the crime scene, and Farley had covered up his son's indiscretions to keep him from going to juvenile. Farley had always prided himself in being incorruptible, and last summer his conviction had been tested, and he had failed. Farley blamed himself for his accident, and he had taught Oswald how to drive as part of a bonding experience. And if he hadn't taught Oswald how to drive, the kid would have never gotten into an accident. And Farley allowed Jeremy to walk free. Frowning, Kane asked, What does Jeremy have on you? Nothing, said Farley, once he was in control of his emotions. Even if Jeremy had been there, he had erased all the evidence. It would be his word against his. If Jeremy had a father, he could claim that it was Doctor, and he could claim that it was a mistaken identity. All twins look alike, after all, thought Farley, trying to comfort himself. In the end, he lied and said, My son did some graffiti, and he was caught, and I pulled some strings to get him out of that jam. Is that it? asked Kane, still unconvinced. Graffiti is a serious crime for some stupid reason, and my boy could have spent 60 days in juvie. And my Oswald is a bit of a shrimp. He wouldn't have been able to survive a single day in juvie, said Farley. You did the right thing by covering up your son's indiscretion, said Kane, smiling candidly. You are a good father. It means a lot to me to hear you say that, Kane, said Farley, smiling sadly. Look, Farley, if you want Jeremy to talk, it is best to have Siddhanta interrogate him, said Kane. But Siddhanta and Jeremy are brothers, and there's a chance that Siddhanta might cover for him, said Farley. Not likely. Siddhanta's overprotected of Jeremy, and if we tell Siddhanta that Jeremy's secret lover is a killer, I am certain that Siddhanta will side with us, guessed Kane. I suppose we will just have to draw Siddhanta, said Farley. The worship came to an end, And like every Monday, Jeremy would visit Carina's house for his weekly sessions, and Carina would watch their session from far away. And for when she said the two always looked like they were playing with dolls, and she was lazily watching her mother's sessions while resting on the hammock. And she felt exhausted. In other words, she had postponed having dumped her on Monday, and the people was broken when she saw Sedanta arrive on his patrol car. And even for what she said, she could tell that he was furious. Ahora sí, no, that chapter, bye bye, God bless.